Yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. So,
Sounds good.
all right. So, welcome to another episode of Masterminds with James Allen. He is I, and I am him. Man, today I'm so excited. We've got, we've got Houston royalty, celebrity here, a mentor, a coach. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do the proper introduction here. So, I'm sorry, I just went into it because I'm so excited to have this person on here today. So she is a multi-passion entrepreneur with experience in wholesale, retail, and service businesses. She's currently involved with, and I'm sorry, founded and still involved with Macaroons by Patisse. That is a luxury macaroon boutique that has 3 locations here in the Houston area. She is also owns custom retail packaging where she does packaging for specialty packaging, custom brand boxes, bags, accessories, etc. And also, I really want to get into this. She is about to launch, man, oh man, an inspirational athletic line. It's called DBS. Don't be scared. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Other than that, man, she's a high performer. It's very impressive her background and the things she's done. She's excelled in multiple different industries, created 7-figure companies. She's also a coach to many, and she does all kinds of cool things. Does Bozzy readings, and I really want to get into that as well. I mean, it's like, what can't she do? But I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on here. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Sukaina Rajani to the Masterminds podcast. What up? How are you?
Oh my God. Hello. What an introduction. Can you please do my intro for everything that I ever go to? I loved it. Thank you.
I got you. No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, so much to talk about, but I mean, let's just start with Sukaina. How are you? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm in the middle of a bit of a life transition. So I've been in the Houston area for the last 12 years, born and raised in Canada, actually.
Yeah.
And that's where my entrepreneurial itch kind of evolved. I mean, if you don't want to consider me selling lemonade on like my street corner in Canada, but that's where a lot of my entrepreneurial journey kind of started. And then June of this year, I got married, and
Hey, congrats.
I thank you.
Awesome.
From a miss to a Mrs. And my husband is actually in Boston, so I'm actually here in Boston right now, um, kind of going back and forth. And I just kind of wanted to take this time into newly married life and this new transition and actually like really focus on my husband, because for the longest time I focused on all my other babies and ventures, and I thought it would just be a nice change of pace and change of scenery, and it's great. But
Yep.
I'm definitely coming back to Houston by the end of the year because I realized I miss that. I love what I do, and that's been something I've, been talking to my husband about. I miss being around like-minded people. That energy to me is everything that I live for. And so
Yes.
and we're just so fortunate, James, being in a city like Houston where we have a mix of it all. And I feel like the people that I surround myself with are just fantastic. And so I'm excited to be back in that vibe.
Awesome. Awesome. And how does the husband feel about going from the Boston weather to humidity? I mean, how is that?
He's not thrilled about it, but
Yeah.
let me tell you, he's a big
Yeah.
golfer, right? And
Hey.
golf season is ending for him in like the next month or so. So guess what? He gets to play in Houston year round. He
Right.
might have to start at like 4 in the morning in the summers, but hey, he can play year round.
Literally, yeah. You have to get that early tea time in the summertime because it's bad. But no, awesome. And we're super excited to have you back, here in the
Thank you.
city. So no, that's
I'm
going to be
excited.
awesome. Yeah. And we're looking forward to it. So before we get into all of this, man, so I've kind of hinted towards this already. But Sukaina, you are literally one of 2 factors to why this mastermind podcast exists, right? And so one I've already spoken about, a good friend of mine, Adrian Mendez, he's was the first guest. We did this all the time and we talked about branding. And so we kind of tried it out. I guess you could call it a pilot if you wanted to. And then we kind of rolled with it. But the other thing was uh, towards the beginning of the year, uh, I'd been approached by Kevin Shelton and well, both Sheltons, Aisha, they're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, Sukaina, you have to talk to her. She does this reading, it's phenomenal. And I was like, yeah. And get the hell out of here. Like okay. Like I'm not a believer in that. And then my wife had it, and my wife was like, shout out to Rachel. She was just like, oh my gosh, like I was like, she's like, you need to do it. And I was like, okay. She's like, well, I already booked it for you. And I'm like, oh, well, there you go. She knows how to get me to do something. And I mean, from there, that conversation was right on time. It was awesome. You and I had a great conversation. She's really, really good at what she does. And just Sukaina's energy, and like we had never met before that, but just the conversation was good. We actually talked for maybe an hour, a little over an hour. The way you take your time with that, and really explain to people and let them ask questions was phenomenal. And from that conversation, one of the things, through what you shared with me and kind of read back to me, is the reason Masterminds is here. I mean, you told me this year was the year to get myself out in front of a lot of more people, go for things that I want, ask, and so here we are. So I said all that rambling to say thank you for what you do.
No. I appreciate you saying that, but the reality is I could say that all day long to a bunch of other people, and it would be what they take from it and if they actually act on it, right? I think that's the hardest part. Whether it's in the little confines of the Batsy reading that I did, or just being a coach in general on the business front, I can tell you all day long, like, this is what you need to do, but it's really on you to do it. So really, thank you for doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because you just have so much to offer and so much ahead of you. And I'm just so glad that something I said resonated.
Awesome. So for people who are not familiar, can you quickly state what is, I'm sorry, because I may have pronounced it wrong. Is it Batsy?
Batsy, yeah.
Batsy, okay.
Yeah.
And can you just kind of tell us what that is for people who are unfamiliar?
Yeah, totally random, right? Because you hear about me and you're like this business person who's like very like empirical based, and my background's in pharmacology, and then all of a sudden you're like, she does this like woo-woo Batsy readings. Okay. So I totally don't do them as like a profession. I do them because I love them and they're fun to do, and they generally come from like referrals. So you'll notice I don't advertise them or talk about them very much.
Right.
But I've always really been into spirituality, just in general. I've been really into mindset work. And one day I too was exposed to someone who did a reading for me. And the reading is based on your astrology chart. It's based on your birth chart. So it's the date of birth and time of birth. And whatever was going on in the universe at that time, whatever the alignment was, gives you some really good insight as to who you are as a person on a Chinese metaphysics level. So there's traditional astrology, right? Like, are you a Leo, Scorpio, whatever, what that we see. I believe in that too. But I've always been a little weary of horoscopes, and I feel like there's so many different aspects of that. And when you really get deep into astrology, there's a lot that you can kind of learn about yourself through that. This was the Chinese side of it. And the cool thing about that is once you actually pull your chart up, you can look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your hidden talents, the way that you think. I feel like we spend so much of our lives learning about ourselves, right? Through experiences and the things that we do, which is great. You need to do that. But what if someone was like, hey, here's your manual. This is what you're like. This is your like shortfall when it comes to the way that you think or whatever. This is what you're really good at. Maybe focus on that shit and forget about focusing on the stuff that you're not so good at.
Right.
And you could do freaking really well in life, right? And that's what came through to me when I had my reading. And I just went into this spiraling rabbit hole of stuff. Ended up studying it through this mentor in Singapore. He's huge. Did his courses like a crazy person. I remember my dad looked at my credit card statement at one point and he's like, why are you spending thousands of dollars on Chinese astrology? Like, he thought it was nuts. But for me, whether I did it for someone else or not, it was like, I just want to learn everything I could about myself, because if I can find that shortcut, why not? And a lot of it is based on your mindset. And so with annual charts, you can kind of see how things are shifting in the universe in relation to your chart. And from there, you can kind of make decisions like, is this a year for me to kind of chill out, observe? Is this a year for me to take inspired action? Is this a year for me to like really network? Is that going to be an important thing? Is this a year for me to really like educate myself? Those things, if someone gave you that insight, like, wouldn't you want it? Like, so that
Absolutely.
you know that you can gear yourself up. So that's kind of the insights that you can get from Batsy. And, without Batsy, I was a firm believer. People are always like, oh, I'm working on my weaknesses. And that sometimes drives me crazy because I feel like, why? You have your strengths here and your weaknesses here. And you're working on your weaknesses, you're literally leveling it out to get here, but nothing has changed on this front. Like, what good
Mm,
did that do? In
right.
my opinion, who gives a crap about this? Let's just get better and better. And then you can hire someone to make up that gap of the shit that you don't know how to do.
Exactly.
And I think that, like, I think it was Tom Ford, right? Or not Tom Ford, sorry, Henry Ford that did that. He knew what he knew how to do. And then he literally hired people around him to do the rest. And I think Barbara Cochran talks about this all the time.
Mhm.
She knew what she knew how to do. And then she got a business partner that was really good at all the shit she didn't know how to do. See, I
Yeah.
told you I'd have to worry about my mouth more
I
than you.
love it. I love it. I love the energy. I love it. No,
So
uh-huh.
that's kind of the premise of it all. There you go. Now I'm rambling.
No, awesome. But your story of, and if you don't mind sharing, but your
Yeah.
story about how you were introduced to Botsy and how that whole story of how you got there was super impressive as well. I mean, it was just like it was very inspirational what happened. And I don't know if you mind sharing that at all, because it was
No,
yeah, because you were
I
like
don't
also
mind at
too.
all.
Mhm,
Yeah, I don't mind at all. Sorry.
mhm,
So obviously background business. 2020 was a hard year for a lot of people.
mhm.
Um, and I was pivoting everywhere in career, in business, right? We all had to kind of figure out what the hell was going on. Like, was this
Yes.
lockdown going to be 2 weeks? Was it going to be 2 days? I honestly, truly, I swear, I was like, oh, this is not going to last more than 2 weeks, guys.
Right.
Like, come on. And
Right.
here we are, still not fully cleared. So um, during that year, I had something pretty tragic happen. I
Mhm.
had a stroke. I suffered a stroke. Um, and it was not because I was in poor health. It was because I went to a chiropractor and he adjusted my neck and he spliced my artery and I lost mobility on my left side. And so I was a really young 37-year-old, healthy 37-year-old that suffered a stroke. And the moment the doctor, the neurologist told me, I remember thinking, like, going back into my brain, being like, okay, it's my left cerebellum. Like, I know how to do this. I know how to meditate. Like, I know how to get those neurons to work. And if you would have met me then, James, my speech, I speak pretty fast. It was like a quarter of that speed.
Really.
My reflexes, I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair, like the wildest stuff. But the thing that really drew me to Batsy even more to really get into it was because of everything I'd heard from this woman who did my reading, is what helped me get through that stroke, which helped my mindset to be able to understand and know that I have the resilience to get through it. Like this, and it's wild because the year before, we did yours at the beginning of the year. I did mine at the beginning of the year. And I was like, so what's my theme for this year? And part of my and I did it for myself. So I'm looking at my chart and it said Earth. It was the dominant theme, and Earth usually stands for money. Like, this is the year of money. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. As a business owner, like, that sounds great.
Right.
And as soon as I think that, my mentor, my teacher goes, except for this year in 2021, what that really means is healing. And I was like, well, shit, that sucks. Like, I was really hoping I got the. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what do I need healing from? Like, sure, everybody has relationships and interactions and things like that they need healing from. But I'm like, what the hell? Legit 2 months later, I have the stroke. And I'm like, well, no
Oh
shit, that
my
was the
God.
healing, right? So I'm not saying it's like this predictive power, but it did set me up for a mindset to heal, a mindset to be resilient, a mindset to strive for the best, and a mindset that told me that it was possible. And today, here I am. If you see me, you don't see a deficit. I mean, sometimes my lips are a little like not perfectly symmetrical or whatever, but if you looked at me, you wouldn't be like, oh, this chick had a stroke. I
Right.
can walk, I can use my hands again. All of that stuff. So that was part of the Batsy journey, and how I really got into this other metaphysical, spiritual aspect of my life.
Sheesh. Yeah, that that's very inspiring. And again, I was a skeptic when you and I had spoke, and I mean before you and I had spoke, and then I think you told me that early on in the in the conversation, because I was just like, how do you know about this? And how do you, and you shared that with me. I was like, oh shit. So yeah, it was very much a legitimizing, point in the conversation for me. And then what you told me after that. So it was very helpful. So again, thank you so much
No,
for
my
that. Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Let me actually give you another example that's not health related because I feel like it just ties in
Hmm.
to not legitimize it, but just to understand how this can work. One of the things that this woman had told me was that she didn't know anything about me. And that's how I like to do Batsy readings, by the way. I get the name and the date of birth, and I really just don't, I look you up. I don't want to know anything about you. Like, I just want to go into it so that I'm unbiased. And she knew nothing about me. And she goes to me, she's like, well, you wouldn't make a really good business owner. And I'm like, well, this girl has it all wrong. Like, I'm
Right.
very successful. Like, and she was like, well, it's because you're not really good at delegating. You're really good at kind of doing all the work, but you're not good at delegating. That's something that you really lack. And then she goes, but if you do go into business and you can learn that aspect of it, you would be very successful. But the second thing is that you would need to be the face of your company. And I'm like, for the longest time, I mean, social media, when I first started Macaroon by Patisse, which is probably notably my first, multi-million-dollar business.
Mm.
When it came about, social media was fairly new, and macarons are really beautiful to picture. And why the hell do I need my face on that? Like, it was all macarons, like they sell themselves, they're beautiful, they taste good, whatever. And I just wasn't comfortable putting myself out there. Like, I wouldn't. And so I thought about it and I'm like, well, I'm a good business person because I did learn the delegation thing, right? So that's
Mm.
one thing that she said, and she's absolutely right. I suck at it and I have to consciously think about delegating. But the second aspect was, let me put this out there. And James, I cannot tell you. It's like I put a picture of me with macarons versus just a picture of macarons, and the type of engagement that I get is like quadrupled.
Yeah.
When COVID happened, though, that was when I saw the true effect of it. People weren't coming into Macaroon by Patisse to buy macarons just because they craved macarons. They were coming into Macaroon by Patisse because they wanted to support Sukaina.
That's awesome. That's
People were
awesome.
buying gift cards and for hundreds of dollars, and they've never used them. Not because, again, they give a crap about my business, but they give a crap about me because of the little engagement and interaction that I've now shown within social media. And that was like my turning point. I'm like, okay, there's something about me that I've obviously been missing. I haven't been putting myself out there, and that's something that I need to start doing. And so I've kind of implemented that in a lot of my businesses. But yeah,
No, that's
it,
awesome. Yeah. And, so that was kind of a good transition. So let's talk a little bit about Macaroon by Patisse. I mean, like, tell us about, how you got started. Rachel was telling me about that after she went to the workshop. You do workshops. I mean, is it not necessarily a workshop? It's like a
class.
class. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how you got started is awesome. And to where you've grown the company to. I mean, you mind sharing that at all?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Macaron by Patisse started back in 2012. Our first shop will be hitting our 10-year anniversary this January coming up, which is
Awesome.
friggin'
Congrats.
wild. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And it started because I had a holistic wellness and nutrition practice. So my background's pharmacology. So I had a little clinic instead of a little yoga studio. And I worked with children with ADD, ADHD on the autism spectrum. I worked with adults with IBD, so Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, got into that because my brother has Crohn's. And when they would come to see me, I was like, what can I give these kids that's a treat, like that's color free, gluten free, preservative free, like something. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize is a lot of behavioral issues, fine motor movements, speech development is affected by the things you consume. And
Hmm.
all of that red food coloring and like all sorts of these things affect a child's behavior and development, especially when they're a little bit more sensitive. So I was like, what can I get them? And I'm like, well, let me go get some macarons because if they're made right, they're gluten free, they're made out of almonds. And if I can get ones that are without color, like a vanilla, we're good. Well, I go out in Houston and there is only like 2 shops that have them. And because macarons have such a short shelf life, if you don't eat them in a day, they just don't taste as good the next day.
Right. Right.
And so people didn't know what the hell a macaron was. And so people weren't buying it. And when you did get it, it tasted like a hard, crunchy cookie that had gone stale. And so no one's going to pay something like $3 a macaron. And the other ones that I found were like electric blue cotton candy. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of goes against everything I'm trying to like teach.
Right.
So At 3 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep. And the reason for my lack of sleep was I was young, very young, and went through a divorce. I had a semi-arranged marriage. It didn't work. We weren't aligned. We were great on paper, terrible in real life. And so we ended up parting ways. And I was 23 and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die alone. Like no one is going to marry me. And I know that sounds funny now, but
Yeah.
I swear it felt so real back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I was one of the first girls in the community. Like it was just hard. Anyway, and so I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, my mind spinning, and I was like, let me make macaroons. And so I had a little chart on my fridge, manipulated variable, responding variable, figured it out. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. But I take them to the clinic. The kids liked them. It's not like I was selling them. And then at some point, somebody was like, hey, can you do these for a baby shower? And so I did. And then someone asked for a wedding. And it was the wedding that I got discovered, as I like to say. A catering company called and they were like, hey, we tried your macaroons and we need 800 for Friday. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm doing this out of my apartment kitchen, mind you, like one little tray at a time. And now that Rachel's taken the class, I'm sure she has a huge appreciation for how they're made. And so it took me 3 days. And then the next week I got a call for 1,200 and that just didn't stop. And so I was like, well, maybe there's a demand for it. And so
Right.
at the time, my younger brother was looking at franchise opportunities. Like he was always someone who wanted to go into business. And we were looking for franchises because they're tried, tested, and true. Like we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Mhm.
And somehow we were like, well, maybe we can figure this out. And so that's how Macaroon by Patisse came about. I went to River Oaks. I was doing commercial brokerage. I was kind of dabbling in it, tenant rep. When I first inquired about the spot, I got a flat no. Like, you're 27, you're Canadian, you want River Oaks, the most expensive real estate in Houston. Like, good luck. And literally 8 hours later, John Wise, still remember him, Weingarten gave me a call and he was like, let's chat. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he gave me a shot. Someone tried my macarons on his desk actually from the East Coast. And she's like, these are really good. Where do I buy them? And he was like, oh, it's just this Canadian girl that wants to open a shop. And she's like, if you believe in her, you should give her a shot. These are becoming big on the East Coast. And he called me that night. We got off the phone, I think at 11 p.m. And I basically took over a 900 square foot clothing shop in River Oaks that I've now been at for the last like 11 years.
That's awesome. And at the time, I mean, what was that mindset where you, even though that's what you wanted, like once you make that commitment to an actual space, like were you nervous at all, or were you super confident, like I got this shit, or is it ever like, man, like I've, you know, I can't have like, a super down month or anything, or a couple of months because cash flow is king, and I still gotta pay the rent.
I think because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, I didn't
Yeah.
have time to think about all this stuff. I had to just figure out
Mm,
how to get a shop up and running. Like I didn't have time to think about whether it was going to work or not work. I had my projections in my mind based on what I was selling for my home.
yep.
And it was like the rest was, how the hell do I get permits? Oh shit, I need a grease trap. Where am I going to get this equipment? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like where do I find these contractors? How do I get these architectural designs approved? Like all those things had me so consumed that I didn't even get to think about whether I was going to fail or succeed. It was like, shit, I just need to now, I have the space now, let's do this.
And so right there, you were saying that, I need a grease trap, I need, contractors and everything. So how was those, I don't know if they were revelations, or how did that, how are you coming to those kind of conclusions? Because you don't know what you don't know. And so when you're, I guess, taking over, particularly like a clothing outfit, so it's not set up at all for what you need. And I mean, I'm assuming it's a lot different, an operation out of your house to like something commercial, and I guess all the things that go on with being up to code, and I don't know, you know cleanliness and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, how were all these things discovered? Because it sounds like it was in a short period of time that you had to get up and going. So how are you discovering all those things?
I was learning it one day at a time. I was,
Yeah.
and I say this to people, and I think that a lot of the women is, I mean, I mainly coach women, that I coach on starting their businesses. They get so overwhelmed with all the things that they need to learn and figure out. And I get it, but I think the only way I can tell them not to fret is to say, just take it a day at a time. Like, what's the next step? Okay, we have this shop now. What do I need? I need an architect to help make me drawings. Okay, let's find an architect. Hey, that architect is probably going to know contractors, or he's going to be able to know someone at the city for the permits. Okay, which permits will he'll know. Let me go ahead and use the resources. This is where I will also tell people that networking is so darn important.
Yes.
I was part of this, like, I don't even remember what it was called. It was like a bunch of older women, and they were the cutest little old women ever. And we used to meet at like the Egg and I or something on Tuesday mornings at like 7 a.m. And I didn't even have a business at the time, but I would go because I just loved connecting with people. And let me tell you, the moment this business became a thing, I started taking macaroons at 7 in the morning just to be like, hey, I made these new macaroons last night, you know? When I needed contractors, when I needed city people, when I needed power, I still remember we couldn't get power to my place, and it was around Christmas time, and I was just fretting. I was like, "What am I going to do? I'm wasting money every month that I'm not open." And I remember I used to call them my three Jewish moms. Literally walked into the store, and they were like, "Come with us," and they literally marched into Center Point corporate office with me, and they're like, "This young lady needs power," and I would never have had the guts to walk into Center Point corporate and make that happen. Those women did. They're like, we're not leaving until you get this young lady power. Now, granted, I had to pay 10 grand to get them out there during Christmas, but it was 10 grand well worth it because I got things done, you know?
Right.
And so I will, and any resource that I needed, hey, I need someone for this, hey, I need someone for that. There's always someone there ready to help. And that's why I also feel like it's my job now to pay it forward, because I had so many amazing people that helped me when I needed it without wanting anything in return. And so if I can help connect people or get you a resource, I will do that, because I mean, they were godsend.
Yeah, no, that really is awesome. And we have similar friends, and Rachel's been in more contact, but it seems like you definitely not only talk it but walk it, and so that is definitely much appreciated as well. Um, but I'm really interested too, just hearing about startups so Macaroon by Patisse, we get started. We're still learning. When does that? I mean, because now we're at 3 locations. Awesome. It's a staple. People know about it. Tillman Fertitta. We're on TV. Things is lit. So I mean, so no, but going back. So when does that actually turn from hustle to I don't want to say legit, but because it was legit from the get go, clearly by the talent, but from hustle to full on efficient operation, like what is that?
That is a really good question. And if I am to be completely honest with you, it's a hustle every day still, right? It just is different challenges. Like in the beginning, it was like, oh, new place, new permits, new everything. 2 locations turn into, oh, different permitting, more employee issues. 3 locations having a commissary space. Now you're worrying about like logistics, like inventory and supply chain and hedging for vanilla bean, because Madagascar vanilla bean is in shortage, or there's a drought in California, and how the hell am I going to get pallets of almond meal? So it's a hustle every day. There's something different, but it's a hustle that is a different, I guess it's a different mindset of a hustle. It's a hustle that I'm happy doing because I know it's doing really well, right? Before it was a hustle that's like, shit, I need to get this up and running. But the hustle never goes away. And I think that's the truth for any business, right? Like, yes, you can get it working more efficiently. Yeah, I don't have to, like, I'm in Boston right now, right? The businesses are running, making money, and I'm good. But there's just different things. Like right now, I was working for 2 hours on a stupid rendition that came in from the city of Houston about like my personal property at one of the accounts. Like, just it's just a different way of playing. It's a different hustle. But the hustle in business, I think, just doesn't go away. And I think that it would be weird or false for me to say, yeah, like life is just so much more chill now. It's chill in a different way, but it's also I'm working in a different way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. And so what I hear you speak about a lot is passion. Your, everything that you talk about, you not only, use the word passion, but you're clearly passionate about these things. And so I'm wondering, do you think passion is a key for someone's success?
Gosh, okay. Um, Multiple answers for this. I think you need to be passionate about whatever you do in life. Yes,
Okay.
I think if you're not going to put your heart into it. And if you don't put your heart into it, you're just not going to get the results that you dream of. Okay.
Okay.
At the same time, you're not necessarily passionate about everything you do and you still just got to do it,
Oh,
you know?
facts. Yep.
And I feel like sometimes passion builds with work. It's almost like, when you're feeling freaking lazy. I mean, the best example for this is like you needing to get up to go to the gym. Let's be real. Never feels freaking good at 5 a.m. when your alarm goes off and you're like, I'm trying to make it to a spin class or Pilates class or just even hit the gym, right?
Right.
But the moment you're there and you're sweating and you leave at 6:30 and the sun's just coming up and you're like, shit, I already got my workout in. It feels damn good. And the next day when your alarm goes off, as crappy as it feels, you remember how good it felt when you were done. And
Yep.
that motivates you to do it again and again and again. And so sometimes things might not feel like very passionate or you might not be so excited about them. But the more you do them and the more success you feel and the more things that inspire you, you're going to continue to feel inspired and motivated and the passion builds. So I don't necessarily think you need to have passion as a prerequisite to start. I think you need to create it. But then in order for you to have sustained success, you have to do it because you're passionate about it.
Right. Right.
Does
Right.
that make sense? Like it's not a very clear answer. It's not linear. It's like the egg and the chicken type of scenario.
Exactly, because that's what I'm thinking about. It sounds like a
Yeah.
circular reference because you're saying you to be passionate, you need to have success, but success will lead to some of that passion because it's kind of like you're addicted to the success. No, that's interesting. Huh. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, at
No.
least that's how I see it. It's my
Yeah.
opinion.
And so, without any doom and gloom, I mean, you've already hinted towards or spoken about the pandemic and the logistic challenges that brought. And so, on this is a loaded question. Well, just different from different perspectives. Same question, but different perspectives because you wear so many different hats. I'm interested. So, but with the economy where we're going, recession, and the and we're having all these challenges, and from a macro micro level, I mean, it's everywhere. It's hitting all parts and points. I'm really interested to hear about just, I guess, what advice, messaging, are you out there as a coach as or that you're giving, as an owner and a leader that you're giving as these things change? Because what was the number one word that we heard during the pandemic? The number one word that I heard is pivot, 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 pivot.
Mm.
Everyone's pivoting. Everyone's pivoting. So now, is it more more of that, or is it something like, are we scaling and simplifying? I mean, what's, I guess, because you touch it, like, again, you touch on so many different industries, what's some, I guess, overall advice or something that Sukaina can, a little nugget we can walk away with, not to put you on the spot, no pressure at all, but like,
There's a few, and you're right. I mean, because I am in a bunch of different industries, I can touch on it in kind of different ways for each one. I'll start with Macaroon, right? I'm in a luxury business. People during a recession do not care about macaroons, the parties, the quinceañeras, the weddings, the corporate events, on a lot of what's going on corporation wise. And I mean, we in Texas feel it pretty quick, especially when it hits oil and gas, which it seems like the economy kind of revolves around that to some extent. And we're also a big part of the medical community in
very much
Houston,
so,
right?
yeah.
So whenever things get rough there on a corporate level, which a lot of my business comes from, imagine all the catering we do for all the Exxon parties and Schlumberger and Air Liquide, and those kind of plummet. And so what we did during that time in COVID, when I say pivot, was find alternative streams of revenue that weren't affiliated with that. My Macaroon classes, for example, I couldn't do them in person. Guess what I was doing? I was doing them virtually. When I say virtually, I was literally talking to myself in a camera, my brother filming me, and I'm making macarons on a live with people that are registered on the live, asking questions live time. But I had people from all over the world. I'd
I
got
love
there,
it.
Dubai, India, Pakistan, I think Korea. I was like, what is happening? Like, who are these people and how did you find me? Right. But it
Yeah.
was really, really cool. Now I've come back to doing the classes, but guess how many more requests I get for the virtual now? I
Hmm.
get a ton. So I'm like, okay, well, now maybe I could incorporate both, or I could have both, you know? As far as taking my shipping nationwide, we cut that out during COVID because FedEx and UPS stopped honoring their guarantees for delivery. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, nobody wants 5-day old macaroons that they paid $100 for.
Right.
We got rid of it. And so little pivots that we made there, cutting our costs, doing a lot of that during COVID, we're carrying that in. So it's almost like we're taking the best of what we learned during COVID, bringing it into the future and being mindful about what's to come. So we're still managing costs. I mean, the inflation is a pain in our butt for everyone. And
Yeah.
we've had to
Yeah.
manage that, you know? So it's about learning what you've learned, applying it and creating like the best of both worlds, because that's kind of where we're at right now, right? COVID is here, but COVID isn't here. And so
Right.
we're kind of having to mesh the two worlds that we never thought we'd ever have to mesh. The other element about business is COVID or not, recession, or it's just business is cyclical. You're going to have your high years, your low years, your high months, your low months. I think that as a business owner, you just have to get comfortable with that. And I think that you need to make sure you're prepping for those moments. That's one of the things I always say is you always have to make sure that you have a cushion. I'm a big believer in cushions. When I opened my second shop that first year, I got approached by the Galleria. That's how it happened. I wasn't really sure. It was like $100,000 investment. I was like, I'm taking what I'm making. And, you know, yeah, at that point, the economy was good. I was willing to take some risks. If they asked me that today, I probably would be a little hesitant,
Mhm.
right? So you kind of have to gauge it. But at the same time, now when I'm going and thinking about investments, I make sure I have a cushion where I'm good to pay my bills and my employees and things going on, because COVID really taught us we had to do that no matter what.
Yes. Yes.
You know, we were fortunate to do PPP and we had our employees stay on, and, you know, our clients were amazing, but all of that makes a difference. You know, for example, my clients that do packaging, a custom bag used to be like 60 cents, right? For them,
Mm.
like a shopping bag. Now that same bag is like $1.60. Like it's double because shipping prices from China are ludicrous. Do my clients want to spend that much money on packaging? Does it matter enough to their brand? So there's a lot of cost benefit analysis that's going on right now. But all I tell people is that it's going to go down, but it doesn't go down forever. It's going to go
Right.
back up, and you just kind of have to troop through like we did COVID. I mean, we have experience now. We're resilient as human beings,
Yeah.
and we have to be resilient as business owners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I just um the resiliency, particularly in food and beverage, is again, I have a lot of close friends in that space. And when you talk about logistics and you were, breaking down from on a macro level of, all over the world, how those things impact your bottom line. It's like, it's just for anyone here right now, you know, that survived that period as a business owner, is I have the utmost respect for everyone.
Well, and I think if you survive that, you're going to kick butt now. Like you're good,
Absolutely.
you know, and
Absolutely.
you learn from it. And I just think that we just have to look at those as learning opportunities. You know, I think that we just have to accept oftentimes that a failure or failing is just not an option. I know people are like, it's okay to fail and give up and let it go and move on. Yeah, I guess. But I also feel like if you don't take anything, well, you should be able to take that failure and turn it into some freaking magic on the other side, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to give up on that dream, but that's because you learn, oh shit, it's not the Jolly Ranchers that sell, it's the freaking Chupa Chups or something. And you like switch your business model. Then I'm like, cool. But then I don't consider that a failure. I consider that like a transition or like a pivot, like we were saying. So I just don't think failure is an option. I think if we looked at economies going up and down through the years for some of the largest companies, we would, if they just kind of threw the towel in, we wouldn't even have them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so as I hear you talk, I'm wondering, Sukaina, what type of leader are you, and what type of coach? You don't seem soft spoken. You don't, and that's not a bad thing. But are you a rah rah? Are you a very like to the point blunt? And I guess again, these questions both go for what type of leader, what type of coach, or do you approach that the same way? I'm just really interested. What's your leadership style, and does it change from the type of position you're in?
That's a great question. Um, I think if you spoke to my clients, they tell you I'm pretty tough love. Um,
I believe it.
yeah,
I so see it.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all about the fluffy encouragement, and I believe that my job is there to support you and encourage you to do what you are meant to do and for what you desire to do, but I can't do it for you. And I also can't be there to rah-rah you forever, because the reality is the Sukaina is going to go away after a while. And if you are dependent on external validation and dependent on someone continually telling you to go for it and you got this, you are going to fail. And I just feel like I would be doing my clients a disservice if I was continually like, you've got this, babe, like you can do this. Of course, I'm human and I will be there to support you and all of that. But I'm definitely
Sure.
like, okay, this is your goal. What can we do to get you there? A part of me is obviously very much like I'm very structured, very type A. So yeah, that's great. You have this dream of opening up a hot dog shop in the Galleria area. Okay, let's talk numbers. How many hot dogs? How much are you going to sell it for? Is it really like reasonable for you to think about doing this in like expensive real estate? Maybe we need to put you in like type B hole in the wall type place and you'll actually make a ton of money that way versus, so
Absolutely.
I think I'm a little bit more of a realist. Um, and I think that's my coaching style, which may not be for everyone because sometimes people just want that like stroking of like whatever.
Yeah.
So that's my coaching style. Leadership on a business front with my staff, with my team, is a little different.
Mhm.
I tend to feel like everyone is my equal there, which I do unconsciously. And I say this because I feel like I wouldn't be here without them. That kitchen staff that works ridiculous pipingless macarons that day, there would be no macaron shop without that. There would be no macaron shop without my girls putting those macarons in a pretty little box and making sure things are okay. There would be, so I'm very mindful of the fact that I'm nobody without everybody. And so my leadership style when it comes to work is not very authoritative. It's very much like, hey, what do you need? How can I make your life easier? How can I help facilitate this action in our kitchen or in our business so that you're happy, you're more productive, things are going well because your success means my success.
I love it. And it's typically when you help rather, your team to have that ownership, they buy in there, and they have that sense of my name's on it, or on my type of work, and it's that pride, and you get a better result. I love it.
Yeah, and
I love
I
it.
love that. And I even for my customer service girls, I tell them, I'm like, I want people to walk into the shop and be like, hey, do you own this? Because if they say that to you, that will light me up because that's what I want. I want them to feel your passion. I want you to feel the pride of being in this beautiful shop and selling these macarons. So yeah, I definitely feel like from a leadership perspective, business wise, I'm a little different than as a coach.
Okay, and awesome, awesome. Sorry, and I'm just thinking, and I hate to just spurt stuff out, but as it comes up in my head, I'm just thinking about our conversation, and you haven't said it blatantly anywhere, but it seems to be what I'm picking up on. Your marketing and branding is very, very strong across the board. And I'm hearing things of while during COVID, we're running virtuals and people all over the world are picking up on that. And so, because that's one of the reasons, not one of the reasons, but that's one of the things that I'm really focused on right now is the branding and marketing and those different things. And is that something that you really um, curate on your own? Do you have a team? Is that outsourced? I mean, it seems like you're probably big enough right now that you're probably outsourcing a lot of that. How did you get to that? Oh, no. Okay. Well, yeah. Tell me more. Like, okay. So how are you doing that?
Okay, so great question again.
Mhm.
Macaron by Patisse is all me. So
Come
I make the
on.
posts, I engage with our clients, I put the stories up, I put the polls up, I send the newsletters out, I respond to the emails.
Oh, shit.
And I do that because the brand is around my face. It's around me, it's around my family. And I take a lot of pride in it. So when people are calling in or sending emails or posting, they know Sukaina's writing back to them. And I would feel like a total fraud if I had someone else writing back to them. So I take a lot of pride in my business.
Sorry, and just to break up, Macaroon by Patisse, what is on the social medias, real quick? What is that, and where can they find you? Because I mean, that's something that people might want to see.
Yeah. Instagram is just at Macaroon by Patisse, so MACARONBYPATISSE.
Okay.
And then the same on Facebook.
Awesome.
We're not on TikTok or Snapchat or any of that other jazz, but the stuff on it isn't trendy. We're not trendy. I'm not dancing to macarons, and we're not doing cool videos and reels and all that fun stuff. It's just really a way for me to communicate with my clients. That's how I see social media for us, and my newsletters and all of that stuff. So I do all of that, and I do it because I take a lot of pride in it, and I would never give it up, because that, as a business owner, sometimes you get kind of lonely, and my interaction with my clients is everything to me. So I love the classes for that reason. I love doing all that. Now, on the other hand, DBS is launching in the next 30 days.
Hey.
And we have a full-on PR team, social media team, all of that, because guess what? I'm not necessarily the face. I'm now going to be more behind the scenes of a larger company. And the PR team is really going to help me put the story out, and put the brand out and all of that. So in that sense, I've done the hiring. Now, for someone who's a new business owner, I will tell you, it is a lot of money to do that. And when you're starting off, you don't have this extra 5 to 10 grand a month that you're just kind of giving to these resources. Despite how helpful you may think they are, I don't think it's something that you can't do on your own. I'm not saying that, of course, a PR agent has their stuff and social media people have their stuff, but I think there's something to be said about you being able to brand yourself and put yourself out there and your company out there initially, until you start making some money and then investing in that further.
Awesome. No, I mean, that's great advice. So great transition, because I do want to get to DBS, but there's just a few things, I like to ask everyone who's on here, and you've already talked about it a little bit. I'm really interested in how entrepreneurs, high performers, how they structure their day. And I know, particularly in what you do, coaching, I know typically in coaching and the managing of the shops and DBS launching, no 2 days look alike, but so
Yep.
I get that. However, there are things like, for me, like you were talking about, my gym opens up Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5. That's the first class. So I'm in and out, 5 a.m. Pardon me. And then, Tuesdays, Thursdays, they're 8:30, and then weekends is different. So Monday through Friday, it's very structured. So I know what time, like I just mark that time off for wake up, gratitude, prayer, gym, kind of get myself together before, responding to emails and all that kind of stuff. I kind of subscribe to the Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning type of thing. Yeah. So that's what I do. But I'm always interested to hear about, here some people, Warren Buffett's up at 3, and, Sukaina's, cooking macaroons at 1 a.m. in the morning. So I know not anymore, but I just like right now, what does your 24 look like, as far as the things that you control, and are, how are you navigating your 24?
Okay. So, the last few months of married life in Boston, definitely a very different structure, because I am no longer on like, oh, my kitchen opens up, and they don't need me on that type of basis. So I have much more of a leisurely lifestyle here. I've actually put my phone in the kitchen now, and I wake up when I wake up. To be completely honest with you. Also helps being on Eastern time, because no matter what, I'm an hour ahead. So even if it's like 9 a.m., it's only 8 a.m. and I still feel good about myself. But I will tell you, for the majority of my life, and when I'm talking from my university days to just 3 months ago, for me, movement is a very important thing. I think it gets my mind going. It clears my energy. I'm just really big on movement. So I prioritize that. And that means that I would do it in the mornings before my kitchen starts calling me and everyone starts being like, hey, Sukaina, hey, Sukaina, hey, Sukaina. So I would usually be taking the class or doing, hitting the gym usually by like 6 a.m. latest, and I'm out of there by 7:30. And then if I can later on in the day, I actually add in some movement again. I during COVID started walking a lot, and then obviously for rehab did that a lot. So I actually love taking calls while I'm walking the bayou in Houston. That's just something I did a lot of. My spirituality is also the same thing, like the gratitude, the journaling, the meditation. I generally will do that in the mornings as well with my little cup of tea, coffee, whatever it is that I want to have. And then the rest of the day is pretty flex in terms of whatever's needed at that time. Like you said, my launch right now with DBS is taking up a lot of my time. And I just allocate, my calendar is everything. My color coded calendar is everything. But I always make sure I take out time for, like I said, movement, anything spiritual. And it doesn't have to be all three. I don't have to do gratitude and journaling and meditation. I'll just do one of them. And then
Right.
for me, social interaction is really important. So connecting with
Mhm.
people. I love hearing people's stories, despite the fact that I'm doing a lot of the talking today. It's like, I want to counter interview you. I love hearing people's stories because I think that's what inspires me and motivates me. And so there's always some sort of social interaction to my day for the most part,
Awesome.
whether it be calling someone and connecting with them or, and I was in Houston, it was definitely much more in person.
Awesome. It's, definitely always cool to hear how people navigate that. It really just seems like there's common themes around, people, getting up early and the movement and exercise and that kind of meditation or, so no, awesome. Okay, cool, cool. And so DBS, let's talk about that. Don't be scared. Let's get into that
Yeah.
because I mean, what's like, what was the inspiration for you? Like you don't have enough going on. You're like, oh, it was it was so funny. So I pick up Rachel from your macaroon class, and you just casually mentioned like, oh, oh yeah, I might be in Houston around that time. I'm doing a launch of my new athletic brand, and I was like, what is this? And so, okay, so what was the inspiration there, and how did you get started with this new venture?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I can't take all the credit. I
Okay.
have a business partner named Larry Leonard, who is or was at one point my neighbor. Super, we live in the same building. He has a little puppy that's just like my puppy, and we let them play in the hallways, whatever. Larry is a retired Exxon guy, and Exxon, if you know anything about them, lives and breathes acronyms. Like they literally have like a handbook, and when they talk to each other, they're like, "Yeah, FD2 to BTS and blah blah." I mean, it's you would have to be an Exxon insider to understand what the hell they're talking about. Well, as a retired Exxon guy, whenever we'd go out for drinks or whatever, you'd hear Larry yell DBS, and people would be like, "Yeah, never." Oftentimes it was when you didn't want to take another shot, and he'd be like, "Well, DBS," and you're like, "Oh my God, Larry, you're killing me." So that's kind of where it first kind of was where I heard it. And pretty soon I started to notice that we would go to different places like Cuchara in Houston. And for his birthday, everyone's wearing these DBS shirts. And there's all this like, and it was also around COVID when there was a lot of fear. And I noticed like using that term more and more, like, don't be scared. Like, it's okay. We've got this DBS to everything, right? And so he was the one that actually approached me. He was like, it'd be really cool if we could kind of do something with this. And especially after you saw it kind of plastered all over t-shirts. And at that time, it was kind of COVID. Things were a little slower. I wasn't running shop to shop. And I was like, yeah, I can take on a project, not thinking that life was going to go back to normal. And so we literally went ahead and designed an entire athletic brand around that messaging. And when I say that messaging, what I mean is that it's made, like the slogan is made for courage.
I love
Excuse me.
it.
We're
I
using,
love it.
thank you. We're using, we designed it ourselves. We found our own materials, like everything fits really good. I'll share some pictures with you, some BTS stuff that we just did a photo shoot for, but made better, made for courage. Like we want people to wear it and have a story, and the colors are a big part of that. And it's to be bold, to wear bold colors, because oftentimes athletic clothing is gray, black, neutral. Like I'm kind of sick of that. I'll be honest. Like I go to Lululemon and I like Lululemon. It's Canadian, all that stuff. I've been wearing it for years, but I'm kind of tired of the black leggings. I'm tired of, and so our signature color, our first color launch that's coming out is like this cobalt blue. It's super hot. I mean, everywhere I go, I was on the train in New York the other day and they were like, man, those are really cool pants. Like what a nice color, whatever. They fit really good. The guys' shorts have the liner and the liner peeks through in that color. And on that liner, it says made for courage. Like you're sitting there like doing squats and you just get that little peek. It's just a reminder. We're going to be launching a podcast, a DBS podcast, where we're going to be interviewing people with stories of resilience and endurance and what they've gone through. And it doesn't have to be physical, right? It doesn't have to. I think when people think this, they're going to be like, oh, the guy who's paraplegic, that like, which is amazing. But, also the people that are going through different adversities in life. One of the women that we're planning on interviewing is that one that we probably heard about, who after this Roe versus Wade stuff ended up having an ectopic pregnancy and they wouldn't remove the baby. Mm-hmm. And she kind of interviewed on TV and was like, I felt like a walking, talking, living coffin for my baby for days. And just to hear that story. And anyway, so we're going to be really highlighting people's stories, launching bold colors, encouraging courage, encouraging people not to be scared. And I'm freaking excited about it. I'm so excited about it.
Awesome. So I know it's going to be launching here in about a month or so. And yep. I know you guys are going to have a rollout for that, but is there anything right now that you want to share to this audience about how to tap in or look out for what's coming down the line with DBS?
Sure. I mean, they could just follow us on DBS Living, which is our Instagram handle, because it is a lifestyle. It's not just a brand. There's literally one post on there that says coming soon. That's it. But there's a lot to come. We're going to throw a big launch party in Houston. And so once I have the details, obviously you're going to be invited and you'll know about it. And so we can hopefully share some more details with you then.
Oh man, I can't wait. That sounds awesome. Man, there is so much that I want to ask you and talk about, but I am respectful of everyone's time. I know we're coming up on an hour. Quickly, is there anything that we didn't discuss that you wanted to maybe touch on in this conversation?
That's a great question too. I would just say, like, if you have the desire, go for it. Like, I just feel like too many people live their lives feeling like they want something, but they don't go for it. And I just feel like life is just too damn short. So that feeling of desire is enough of a clue, enough of a cue for you to do what you want to do.
Don't be scared. Get your ass out there and do what you need to do. Yeah.
Yes. And honestly, in many ways, Larry said this the other day, which I thought was just this, like, it hit me. We were sitting with our PR person and he goes, this is my DBS, like this project. And because, he's an Exxon guy, like corporate dude, like for him to do something like this is just so out of his realm. And so he was like, this is my DBS. And I just looked at him and I'm like, wow, yeah. Like, makes me so happy.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
There's also one more thing that I'd love for you to share with your audience. If possible. So I do have the Life Launch Insiders Club. So for those people that don't want to work with me one-on-one, because I can't necessarily take them on because I have so many things going on, I started a group membership program. So it's all the habits and mindset and lifestyle and all of that in a group program, so they can join in and they get to be in that vibe, they get to be in that energy, they get to be in my vibe and my energy. And in that is included 2 live Zoom calls where we discuss the month's content, because it's very theme oriented. And then one of them is just an insider's office hours. So if you have a business idea or you're thinking about something, that's your chance to ask me, like right there with everyone there. Everyone can learn, but also you're not paying me one-on-one to do those consults. So if anyone's interested in like getting in that vibe of like DBS and like doing what they want to do and living their lives and learning the habits, the lifestyle, the mindset of an entrepreneur, I would love to see them in the group.
And that is everyone. That's men and women.
Actually, I'm focused more on women. So I would like.
I heard every.
I know. Sorry. I'm going to be so honest with you. I've had men in the group And I feel like sometimes they're not there for the right reasons. And it sometimes makes it uncomfortable for other women to maybe like really open up and talk about their issues. And so that's kind of why it is for women. And I'll even create like a promo code or something so they get like a free month or something through you. Cool. But yeah, right now I'm focusing on women because I feel like I want to get them out there.
Yeah, cool. And let me know the promo code and we can put that up. We'll share that on all the outlets, Apple and Amazon and wherever it's published, and you can listen to it in YouTube. And also the coaching, the coaching, because I asked you about that. The coaching is women only as well, right?
Currently, yes. Yeah, I still have 2 male clients that I'm still working with, and they're going to be the last, but or not the last, but like it's just a little different. And again, it drives me crazy, and I don't want to pigeonhole all men in this because that's not the reality. But oftentimes my male clients, I will give them something to do, and then they're like, oh, well, can you make that call? And I'm like, hold on, but I'm not your secretary. I'm not your assistant. Like, I'm here telling you what needs to be done. And it gets very frustrating for me. And so, you learn boundaries and you learn what you kind of want to deal with and what you don't. And I think as I've gotten older, I'm kind of like, not doing it. So
respect it. No, I remember you saying that when, because I asked you that when we had the rating, because you were telling me you're a coach, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm looking for a coach. You're like, I only work with women. Get the hell out of here. So
I'm
awesome.
so sorry.
All good. So no, that's awesome, man. I really do appreciate your time, and this has been inspirational. Just hearing about the different story. Sorry, not stories, but hearing the stories about your different ventures. Everything you got going on, really great energy, just really positive. So I'm very much appreciative. I do, however, like to end every conversation with this question. So when it's all said and done, what does Sukaina want to be remembered for?
Oh, I think my energy. I just want people to just remember, like, whenever they were around me, that they felt good. They felt inspired. They felt motivated. They felt good, and I think that's something that I not try. I think it comes pretty naturally, but I'm very cognizant of that around me. So for me, I would want them to remember my energy.
Awesome. And then lastly, I know I said that was the last question. I lied. What if people want listening to this and want to reach out to you and want to join your mastermind or group call, or want the one-on-one coaching, or want a Batsy reading, how can they reach out to you and find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just going to give my Instagram handle because it's the easiest thing, and I still respond to all the messages and take them all. And it's just Sweet Sukaina. That started with Macaroon, and we've kept it because it's easy, but it's SWEET, Sweet, and then Sukaina, my name, SUKAINA.
Awesome. And just to let you know, when this is published, that will be right under your name on this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I definitely appreciate you. This has been awesome. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen, and all the success that's going to be surrounded with with this launch of DBS and the Macaroon by Patisse, and just seeing how you continue to elevate and inspire. So no, I really do appreciate your time, and this has been awesome. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You were such a pleasure. You have such a great vibe yourself. So this is honestly like the highlight of my day.
Appreciate it. So yeah, guys, this has been another episode of Masterminds. Please tune in every Thursday for a new episode, and you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, and then we have the visual on YouTube. So I appreciate you guys. Until next time, peace.